Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, ready to join you on this Saturday, going over the DraftKings main slate. Quite a few games here, also a lot of injuries to go over, but that opens up a lot of usage as well. So could be a really fun and interesting slate. So let's get into it. Before actually we do, if this video helps you in any way, please hit the like button. Also consider subscribing to the channel, and also come join us in Discord for free. We also hand out FanDuel core plays and night plays for DK, and you can hit our Patreon to get those. All right, so we go position by position, highlighting the top plays and just kind of pointing you in the best direction. Obviously, right off the bat here, SGA looks amazing. Jalen Williams is out, and also OKC will be without Alex Caruso, and they're obviously already shorthanded in general. So he looks really, really good, coming with the second best projection of the slate. First overall projection among point guards. So he's going to be really chalky going up against the Kings. So 10.8K, I think you can go away from Shy for sure. But he looks amazing. So another reason why you might want to go up and get him is the Anthony Edwards, who also projects really well, is in a smash spot against the Wizards. He's questionable. So if Anthony Edwards is, ultimately out for the slate, then we could obviously be looking at a lot of Timberwolves here, but also it makes SGA look like a much bigger priority. As we go down here, it just nobody really stands out in a big way. Tyler Hero is fine at 8.6. Obviously, the elevated usage with no Jimmy Butler. I think he's fine against the Spurs. Not the most amazing matchup. And just not the best projection when you compare to somebody like SGA, of course. But you're saving like 2.2 thousand in salary, and he does project just fine. And he's not going to be super owned, so I think he's in play. Jalen Brunson going against the Lakers, that's a soft matchup, especially with no Anthony Davis there. So I think he's a fine play too. Like if you just don't want to pay 10.8K for SGA and you want to go pay for somebody like Jokic or Wemby on this slate, which is obviously totally viable, then paying for one of those guys at point guard is a viable option for you for sure. Austin Reeves, Amen Thompson, kind of just in that same breath. Like these guys are all the same price, all pretty similar projections. And Hero is the one that is pulling ownership right now. So all the other guys are going to go super, super overlooked. So I think they're just decent tournament plays. They just don't project amazingly. I think if you want to go down and you don't want to play SGA at point guard, Jamal Murray actually is the one that's going to stand out the most, just because we do not have Russell Westbrook in this game for Denver. So he just probably looks the most compelling based off of his 7.5K price tag. Of course, if you're going to play Jokic, I don't think I'd really pair him and Jokic in the same lineup. But as a standalone play, Jamal Murray looks really, really good at 7.5. De'Aaron Fox, even though the trade rumors keep swirling, he still looks like a really nice value at 7.6. His price keeps coming down. Projection's not amazing. OKC is like the worst possible matchup you can ask for, especially on the road. But all things considered, 7.6K is way too cheap for De'Aaron Fox. So anytime a guy has his price coming down like that, I like to buy low. Not going to be owned and not a super optimal play, but just a little bit interesting for tournaments. Let's see what else really stands out. Nothing projection wise. None of these guys look amazing. I think the only guy I would start looking at would be Stephon Castle at 4.9K. Worked out really well as a core play yesterday. And he's still only 4.9, pretty cheap. Miami is not the tough matchup they used to be, especially with no Jimmy. So Castle looks like a borderline core play, and just a salary saver. You just save money with him at 4.9. Micic is so annoying because every slate I say I can't trust Micic. His prices come up and blah, blah, blah. And here he is 2 games in a row, 31 plus fantasy points. So if you want to play Micic, be my guest. Today's matchup with Denver a little bit better than yesterday's with the Clippers, and somehow the Hornets kept that game close, and he ended up hitting. So I won't tell you not to play Micic. I probably won't at that price, but he is technically in play. All the OKC guys are going to be pretty interesting here, starting with Kason Wallace. Just because no Alex Caruso and Jalen Williams, just a little bit of extra usage. I think I would lean towards the forwards that are going to get a little bit more time with no Jalen. So Kason Wallace is not like a major priority, but a 4.1K with a 24-point fantasy projection, I'm totally fine with that. I don't have an issue with that at all. So a point guard with Ben Simmons there. I think D'Lo is like an okay tourney play. Up back up here. Where is he? I glossed over him. Yeah, but D'Lo is I don't love his price, but and anytime Ben Simmons is there too, I'm not like super excited to go play D'Lo, but we know he has a high usage rate and he does offer a ceiling. There he is. I was looking for him, and the projection's okay. If you get me 35 to 40 fantasy points, I'd be pretty happy about it. The matchup with Houston on the road, not great, but I think he's an okay tourney play as things stand, especially with no ownership coming his way. KJ Simpson, Isaiah Wong, those guys are going to get a little bit of run off the bench because the Hornets remain pretty shorthanded. No Okogie, no Mann, no Cody Martin, no LaMelo, obviously. Also, still no Brandon Miller. So, as far as our guards go, you can take shots on those guys if you want to. Definitely very thin, not safe, but they are in play technically. The other value that I really want to highlight here is going to be Rob Dillingham. He is 3.5K facing the Wizards. So just right off the bat, matchup great. Blowout possibility that exists. And they also have both Mike Conley and Anthony Edwards questionable. So if one or both of those guys miss, Dillingham is a really good bet to push for 25 plus minutes in this game. And honestly, that could happen anyways. So at 3.5K, I think he looks like a really good punt. The other day we were talking about him, and he did end up smashing what he had, like 30 fantasy points, I think 32. So if he can get about 25 minutes at 3.5K, I feel pretty good about him as a value. Wouldn't put him as a core play by any means, just because it's a volatile situation. He is a rookie that he's gonna be tough to trust, but as a tourney play, I like that a lot. In the same breath, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, he's $500 more. Perhaps a little bit more of a stable play. I don't think he's point guard eligible, but just in general, if Conley and or Edwards are out, he should be on your radar. So speaking about him, we'll kick it over shooting guard. I think he is one of the better values here. He's not really popping out. Here he is at 4K. I mean, if he's going to get about 25 minutes against the Wizards, I'm game for that. So, like I said, if Edwards is in, he comes in with a 50-point fantasy projection, coming in with some ownership, not too obscenely priced at 9.6K. He looks really good. There's nothing wrong with him at all. The Wizards give up a ton of production across the board. Typically, you like to go after them with big men in some manner, but I mean, Edwards is liable to completely nuke the slate if he plays. Just keep an eye on his status, and if he's out, go after the Wolves value, and really just any other Wolves in general. So Jamal Murray can be flipped over here. Malik Monk, not super into Malik Monk, but the price is good. So if you want to play Maternities, that's okay. I think I prefer Jalen Green over him for sure. Green just offers a better ceiling in general. I think he's kind of he's back in a groove after having a nice game in his last one. And the Nets are just a way better matchup. So I think he's interesting. Devin Vassell at 5.8 is okay. I think I'd rather just keep going down, though. Isaiah Joe at 3.9, Kayson Wallace at 4.1, even Lou Dort at 4.4. All these OKC guys who are going to benefit quite a bit from a little bit extra burn, a little bit extra usage with Caruso not there off the bench and Jalen out of the starting lineup. So with the Westbrook news, that obviously benefits Jamal Murray, but I think it also benefits Christian Brown a lot. So he's already kind of, he's getting decent run and being pretty effective off the bench because the return of Aaron Gordon pushed him to the bench instead of Westbrook. But in this case, I would imagine Brown returns to the starting lineup. So at 4.7K against the Hornets, that sounds pretty good to me. Let's see what else stands out. Nick Smith Jr., we can keep doing that if we want to at 5K. Not super excited to play him, but he's all right. I'd rather just go down and get Nickeil Alexander-Walker, and I do not mind pairing him with Dillingham if Conley and Edwards end up missing. Julian Strother, 3.1K, one of the best pure punts of the entire slate. Again, like Westbrook being out, that's going to open up a lot of minutes. So while Christian Braun is probably the safer play, he is 1.6K more. So if you want to just punt it and just hope Strother gets a ton of minutes off the bench in a smash spot against the Hornets that could easily blow out and benefit him greatly, I have no issue with that whatsoever. All right, at small forward, Amen Thompson comes in with the best projection. His price just keeps ticking up a little bit. We just know he's a machine, though. He's been crushing. He's like 45 fantasy points in his last game, I believe. If this thing can load, then you can see it with me. Let's see here. Yeah, well, now nothing's loading for me, actually. Getting frozen out of all my stuff here. Anyways, the point is, he was really good in his last game, and I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be good again against the Nets. The Nets do not have good defense, so he looks fine. I don't love the price on this slate because there's a lot of upper tier guys that we might want to get to, but that's going to make him really good tournament play. So I do not have an issue with him. I just think he's not a super optimal play based off of the price. DeMar DeRozan's too cheap, but he also is that cheap for a reason, and the matchup is terrible. If you want to just take a shot on DeMar's, technical ceiling, I think that's fine at that price, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I'd rather save $1,000 and go get Michael Porter Jr., who's going to get a little bit more usage in the starting lineup with no Russ. We can keep going down. Jaden McDaniels was not good in his last game. not even 10 fantasy points. He had been on a heater though, so just knowing his history of being a guy who's pretty inconsistent, I'm going to give him that one. Like, that's okay. It's bound to happen. He does not normally have a very high usage rate. He depends on defensive stats and just like being out there for a ton of minutes. So it's okay. He had a bad game. I'm ready to get back on the horse there at 5.5K against the Wizards. He looks good. Rui, smash last game. Obviously, still no Anthony Davis. The Lakers could be without other guys as well. Let me see if I can catch who is on the injury report. They're facing the Knicks in Madison Square Garden. LeBron James. I think Rui himself is questionable. No, he's listed as probable, so we can trust him. James is also probable. So really, you just need to remember that Davis is out, and that is going to improve the general usage and playing time for Rui. So he looks good at 5.3. Don't have a problem there. Isaiah Joe pops here, 3.9K. Aaron Wiggins is probably the one I would look at the most. He's the cheapest OKC role player, and he has a better shot of getting extra run at the 4 spot with Jalen out. Probably about it. Yeah, I have Jimmy out. You can look at like Jovic and Jaime Jaquez, that kind of thing. Doesn't feel great. Also, it doesn't feel great to look at Josh Green, but hey, Josh Green has actually been getting a lot of minutes, and he's actually been okay in some of his games. I don't really want to play Hornets in general. Certainly don't want to play Josh Green. I'll just say, hey, he's probably going to get 30 minutes if the game stays close. So there's that. Probably it for me as far as guys that I feel actually good about. If Şengün were to miss, let me just check his status. I know he missed the last game, and he is questionable again with a cap issue. So, if he misses, obviously you're going to be looking at Tari Eason and maybe even Steven Adams, but there is also Cam Whitmore, who is only 3.9K and would be a pretty good bet to push for 20 minutes off the bench. I think he's an okay value. Not so sure we really need him, given the OKC and possibly the Minnesota value, but I think he would still be in play. LeBron looks really good at 10.7K, starting off power forward position. The Knicks are not really going to stop him here because of the presence of Jokic and Wemby and SGA. LeBron might be like contrarian. So contrarian LeBron in Madison Square Garden, that's pretty interesting. So I'm definitely going to be over the field on LeBron. And he's probable, so I don't think we have any concern there. Just massive usage bump with no brow. So I feel like he has a really good chance of exceeding his projection pretty easily. Power forward's kind of ugly after that. I think Bam Bam against the Spurs is okay. Miles Bridges is a bit overpriced, but I mean, he's kind of got the team to himself. So I think if you think the Denver-Charlotte game stays close, you can certainly do that. If I had to pick one between him and Bam, it's going to be Bam because he has got a better projection, and he's $1,000 cheaper. Josh Hart is forever in play because he has triple-double upside. But honestly, the real story power forward is Naz Reid, because we don't have Julius Randle for Minnesota. So Minnesota can be severely undermanned. So we want a lot of Wolves in general. We would want that anyways because they're facing the Wizards. But now that they're going to be out without Julius Randle and possibly without Conley and Edwards, I have no issue going and getting 4 Timberwolves on this slate at all. And Naz is certainly one of them. Pretty good chance he starts here, and even if he doesn't, he should play about 30 minutes and crush in this matchup. MPJ already talked about. He is a good play. Aaron Gordon was in my core yesterday. He was a bust at 4.4K. His price has come down. He's got a good matchup. I'm okay going right back to the well here. He is a good per minute guy. It's a great matchup, and he's just really cheap. So he doesn't really need to do that much to hit, so I have no issue just rolling the dice and taking a chance. If you want to get somebody who's just going to get a lot of minutes, is kind of in the same range, I think Keegan Murray at 4.8 looks pretty good too, so I don't have an issue there. And I mentioned Tari Eason before. If Şengün is out, Eason is a smash. If Şengün is in, I think Eason's still totally fine and very much in play at 5.2. If we feel like Jeremy Sohan's minutes are going to tick up, or if any other Spurs guys end up sitting, I think Sohan's pretty interesting because we know he can be a good per minute guy, and he can create a lot of offensive stuff. So right now the Spurs look like they're going to be 100% at full strength, which is not what you want to hear when you want to play a fringe player like Sohan. But if somebody pops out and ends up not playing, then I think he is a solid value. Okay, that's probably going to do it at power forward. Over to center we go. It is very top heavy, very loaded. Jokic and Wemby were on the slate yesterday, and they are back. Jokic has the best projection of the slate, surprising nobody. Facing the Hornets, the Hornets do have Mark Williams back. So I don't know. I mean, Mark Williams has not been a problem for centers down low, so it's really still a really good matchup for Jokic. The real question would be, can the Hornets stay in the game and keep it close? I'm not super confident in that, but if you want to play Jokic, 12K, best projection slate, massive ceiling. I do not have a problem with him whatsoever, especially since he's been kind of like, just okay, honestly, even bad on a couple of these slates. So if people are just going to box score watch and say like, oh, he was bad these 2 games and yesterday he barely hit value and all this, go play Jokic at like no ownership then. Right now, though, he is pulling ownership. So I honestly don't have any issue with not, meeting the field or going over because there's other good options here. Speaking of which, Wemby looks really good, 55-point fantasy projection, facing the Heat. Not much resistance there with Bam and Ware. Besides, he can be a perimeter player anyways, so I don't think we have to be too concerned. It just, there's so many guys here. Sabonis and Cat both look really, really good here. I think my favorite is just going to be Cat, though. He's got the best projection. The best matchup here. Jokic has the best projection, the best matchup, but when you look at price here, Towns is saving you $2,000 in salary and has almost a 50-point fantasy projection. So I think Cat is probably where I'd start at center if I'm paying up. And then if I really wanted the safety and ceiling of Jokic, I think he'd be my second favorite spend here. But it looks like the ownership is going to be pretty split between Wemby, Sabonis, and Towns. And right now, Cat is pulling in the least amount of ownership between those 3 guys. So just everything points to Cat when you look at price and matchup, and the projections are all similar and the ownership benefits him. So I think he looks really, really good here. Isaiah Hartenstein with no Jalen there. Hartenstein looks awesome at 7.2K. If you want to just go down further, you want to go prioritize like SGA or Ant if he's in, I think Hartenstein is a really good center play on this slate. If you want to go down even further, Rudy Gobert or Nas from Minnesota look awesome. The Wizards struggle immensely against big men. I think they're both going to hit. I prefer Nas just because he's a little bit cheaper and a little bit more flexible because you can use him as center and power forward. But if you want to play Rudy, he's very erratic, but he should have success in this matchup, and he is only still 5.8K. Khalil Weir at 6.2. Don't love that he has to go up against Wemby, but he projects well, and the price isn't out of control, so I think he's a solid play as well. JV, do we do the JV thing again? His price is ticked up to 5.9. The last 2 games against the Raptors and Lakers, he looked like he was going to be in a total like winning spot here and crush. And they lost by 40 to LA. It just didn't happen. So I think we can still play him, especially with Sarr still out. But is he for sure going to get the minutes he needs? Are they going to actually keep the game close? Like, those are major questions we have to consider, especially on a slate where the center position is just totally loaded. So I don't think JV is the auto lock he was on the previous 2 slates, but he's still in play. Jackson Hayes with no brow, 4.6K. I'm fine with that. I think he's a better play than JV at this point. They project kind of similarly, and he's probably going to get more minutes. And he's cheaper, $1,000 cheaper. So I think he's a solid play. I don't mind. I don't hate the idea of pairing him with Jokic or Cat and slide him in center or utility. Either way, I think he's probably my favorite center value on the entire slate. And nobody else seems. Maybe Steven Adams at 3.8K. He's probably the only true punt down here that I'd feel really good about. If Şengün is out again against the Nets, he could certainly clean up. In the last game, he did play 23 minutes. He's been a good per minute guy his entire career. He's certainly been good lately, 23 plus fantasy points in 3 of his last 4. And we know he would start and have a pretty decent role here. So I think he's definitely on our radar if Şengün is out. All right, that's going to do it for the position by position breakdown. Like right now, the ownership is going to SGA and Ant. So, right away, I don't mind eating the chalk there. Like, both of them look really, really good. The only problem is SGA is pushing 11K. He's really owned, and there are other guys to go at here. So I think Cat and LeBron are probably the 2 most interesting guys on the slate because they're not carrying nearly enough ownership relative to their massive roles and positive matchups. Like that Knicks-Lakers game could be a really underrated spot. The Knicks are favored by 11, though, which is really interesting. So I'm curious to see if people just get scared of that and just go away from it. We also know that people are going to play a ton of Wolves, and people also are going to eat up the value in OKC. So while those spots are certainly advantageous for us, I think we should also consider, in isolated circumstances with those 2 situations, like where can we get different without getting too cute, right? So SGA is one spot. He's super chalky, but that game could obviously still be a blowout as well. They're projected to win by 7. And, if a lot of the ownership is going to be there, we can certainly just go pay, $1,000 more for Jokic, pivot for $300 more to Wemby, barely spend any more money. Actually, it's less money to go get LeBron, or go all the way down to somebody like Cat. The other thing to consider, though, if Anthony Edwards is out, obviously it takes a really good option off the table, but then it's going to inflate the ownership somewhere else. So in that price range, just above him is obviously Cat. And then there's obviously Sabonis, LeBron, and SGA going up the ladder there. So I would be pretty worried that the SGA ownership would just skyrocket in the event Edwards is out. So for me right now, I think LeBron and Cat are the two studs that I'm looking at the most. And if it's going to get like grossly, heavily favoring SGA, I have no issue going underweight on SGA and going maybe overweight on somebody like Jokic as well. All right, that is going to do it for me. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, hit the like button, and also consider subscribing to the channel so you get alerted to more videos just like this. And if you want extra advice, you can hop into our Discord, which is free to just chat live with all the other people who are in there. And of course, if you want extra help, if you play specifically on FanDuel, we give out FanDuel core picks. You can hit up our Patreon for that. And if you play the night slate on DraftKings, we put out picks for that on Patreon as well. All the links you need can be found at right here on our YouTube channel, and hopefully we'll see you in the Discord. Thanks for watching, and good luck.